just the other cryptos, and you've obviously with Glassnode, you guys do a little bit of work having a look at stablecoins and ETH. Interested to get your thoughts on kind of what the state of play is in terms of crypto. Do you think it's going to have another bull run? You had a really good video that I remember watching and not understanding it all, but kind of how ETH scored a bit of an own goal by shifting from proof of work to proof of stake. Just talk to us a little bit about kind of what's the landscape in quote unquote crypto, and how's this going to work, and what do you see happening in the coming sort of
Yeah.
12 to 24 months?
Yes, I mean, at the highest level, I think if you objectively look at the market, Bitcoin is the first obvious product market fit, right? Unflipped, and I would expect it will continue to be unflippable, and more than 50% of the entire market cap, and that includes all the inflated token values, right? So Bitcoin real dominance. If you There's a bunch of metrics I use to track it, but dominance is well in excess of 65, 70% on any rational, meaningful way you want to measure it. The other primary use case and application for blockchain technology, without a shadow of a doubt, anybody that argues against this is just objectively wrong, is stablecoins. Tether on Tron, I don't know if people know this, Tether on Tron is responsive. You take all the USD value of Bitcoin that's moving, all the USD value of ETH that's moving, and every single stablecoin, Tether on Tron accounts for 41% of all that value
Yeah,
being
it's
transacted all the
amazing.
time. It's incredible. And Tether is going to dollarize the world. And I was talking with Michael Dunworth about this. My view on Tether is you don't get to 90 billion without a tap on the shoulder from the US government. They are all in bed with each other. And Tether has essentially been tasked with buy our bonds, because our government has a whole lot of bonds we need to sell. We need someone to
Mm,
buy these things.
yeah,
Please buy our bonds, and we will not squash you like a bug. And your job is to give dollars to every country in the world. That's it. Just let the
yeah,
market adopt Tether. This helps people in ways that you simply can't understand, right? Us in the West, we just can't understand what it's like to see your bolivars get devalued month after month after month. Having access to US dollars on the blockchain is incredible. It's an incredible offering. Now, you mentioned that video. What I touched on there is that when you actually peel back the onion of how, let's just call it, the DeFi ecosystems work,
yeah.
they are 100% reliant on stablecoins. The system simply doesn't work without centrally issued USDC and Tether. That's what people borrow. That's their, you know, basically the world doesn't run on ETH collateralized loans. It runs on people depositing a crypto asset and borrowing some kind of token, a stable coin. And they
Mm,
use that for speculation, for leverage, for all sorts of stuff. Now, sure, someone could borrow their own asset again, but is censorship resistant? No, because if Tether says, "Hey, sorry, the US government's got their foot on a boot on our head. We cannot allow you to use these DeFi protocols." Switched off in one go, right?
mm,
So, do you need a fully decentralized blockchain to do any of this stuff? No, you need Tron, a centrally managed blockchain, which is as decentralized as the thing it supports, which is stablecoins. So at the end of the day, I look at all these things stuff and I go, at a technological level, you can't compete with Bitcoin. And my argument against Ethereum is what they've done is a very big mistake, is that they tried to be money. There's arguments as to why you would want to do that, but you ain't going to win. And that's the problem. In order to achieve the money use case, they had to sacrifice the gas use case. And that's why
mm.
fees are 30, 40, $50, because the system doesn't scale. So in order to scale, they've built all these layer twos. I don't know if you've ever used these layer twos. The
No.
user experience ain't going to happen. Whichever engineer thought that this was going to happen is wrong. Not going to happen, guys. So they've created just orders of magnitude of complexity to try and fix the problem of the system doesn't scale. And it's not going to work. The other side of the equation, you've got these Solanas and all these new coins. Now, look, my view is that there's no question we're going to have silly season again. Alt season not going anywhere. I think even the most devout Bitcoin maximalists will understand that humans love to gamble and speculate. It's going to happen, right? So put that aside. The interesting thing that I've learned recently is that the way to think about Ethereum is it's a single core computer. Solana is trying to build a multi-core computer. Now, there's all sorts of trade-offs it has to do to achieve that. But essentially, when I look at that landscape, to me, it's like, I mean, single core, multi-core. It doesn't matter if they're useful. The market's going to bet on these things irrespective. Gee, you got some serious tech debt to get through, Mr. Ethereum. You're in a really tough spot where you're not money like Bitcoin. You're also not fast like Solana. You're in a bit of a valley of, you don't really have a great deal going for you aside from liquidity. So I just simply look at the crypto universe as an interesting experiment. You get to see all these like market dynamics. You get, at the end of the day, we get to watch in fast motion how Wall Street got to be as corrupt and crooked as it is. Because we're watching them rebuild it bug for bug, piece for piece, brick for brick. The crypto ecosystem has just rebuilt traditional finance in all of its glory. And we've got to see that like fast track from A to B of how Wall Street got to be the way it is. And I mean, look, you can have your ideological arguments. I find that fascinating. Just as a simple engineer, as an observer, to me, it just blows my mind. And you can look at all the trade-offs and say, look, you still need centrally managed stablecoins. So Tether on Tron, the second biggest use case in all of crypto aside from Bitcoin. And it's a very, very long tail after that of very questionable concepts and ideas, but the
Hmm.
market likes to try this stuff.
That's great, man. And tell me this, like, why do we even need a blockchain if it's so centrally managed? Like, couldn't Tether just come and go like, listen, guys, we're going to issue Tether on its own, proprietary blockchain, because we know Justin Sun, who likes to plonk his face all over billboards, is ultimately the one pulling the strings there. And yeah, it's kind of just nobody cares about decentralization. It's just it's obviously, I mean, that's how you achieve, you know,
I mean, at the end of the
12.
day, Tron is just a big database, right? So I actually think it's a very, and again, there's probably a lot of people who would spend more time looking at this stuff, right? I'm a cursory observer. I just find it interesting from the sidelines.
Yeah.
But my view is that the market has adopted Tether. Why? Because it's kind of anonymous. It's kind of got that air of like, people didn't adopt USDC. US VCs did because it's like, oh, this is a very compliant stablecoin, right?
Mm,
But
yeah.
Tether's kind of this like, we're a bit shady, we're a bit spooky, like, we're kind of in court with it with the government, but we're also not. Like, do we have the coins? Do we not? Do we have the backing? Do we not? The market adopted it because it's a little bit rogue, even though it's not. Tether has actually frozen more coins than USDC has for the
Wow.
US government. So Tether is actually more compliant than USDC. But at the same time, you've got traditional finance being like, it's a fraud, it's a Ponzi. It's like, it's a fraud and a Ponzi that the US government controls. But they can't see that second and third derivative of what's going on. So the market adopted Tether because it looks decentralized and it looks shady. And I think people underestimate that human component of why did they adopt it in the first place? Because they didn't adopt USDC. They didn't adopt BUSD. They didn't adopt any of these other ones. And, why do you need a blockchain? Because it gives that air of, I mean, it does the job. It does the job of what Tether is out there to do. So I think that's kind of the big picture of it. It's a
Yeah.
human psychological thing. It's a technological thing, and it's just good enough to achieve the goal. And it's already hit escape velocity. So that's kind of why it works.
Yeah. And I do echo your sentiments in relation to the value of stablecoins. It's totally undeniable. I mean, coming from Africa, you do anything to get your hands on US dollars. And my wife's got family in Zim, and you just don't have any money in the bank. It's an absolute waste of time
Yep.
because even when you had a US dollar account, one day the government goes, all right, don't worry, guys. We're going to convert your US dollars to Zim dollars, but they're 1-to-1. And then the market goes, yeah, not quite.
Yep.
And then you're totally debased. So nobody wants to put their money in the banks, and everyone just wants to get their hold of USD. Never mind the people that don't have access to banks. Full stop. So it's
It's a big
undeniable.
path dependency as to how we get here. It's just
Yeah,
it's just the way the cards fell, and as a result, that's just the way it is. And yeah, that's why I find it so fascinating to observe, because it's just we got here because we did.
totally. And what I would tend to advise people in South Africa is because the rand melts by about 8 to 10% per annum against the US dollar, is that if you've got savings that are like, let's say your 1-2 year, maybe 3 year savings, consider doing something like, oh God, it's hard to say, but Tether on Tron. I was actually always going to say like something like a USDC. You might say, yeah, there's sort of custodial risks and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, absolutely. Like, make no mistake. It's, you could get rugged anytime, but
Hmm. You
you've got
are getting
rands.
rugged with a rand.
The rand is
Uh,
already rugging you.
choose your own rug, right?
It's
This
a
and
slow rug.
the trade off is that if you want the unruggable, you have to deal with the volatility, which is Bitcoin. So
Yes.
it's, however, that will also start to change as all these big players get involved, and just maybe that reduction in volatility. I mean, Bitcoin hit 30% volatility, which is kind of probably a number that doesn't mean much to you, but it's like historically 100%, meaning it moves 100% over a, whatever period you're looking at.
Mm.
Here we're looking at, or annualized, it got down to 30% over, up until October. So the volatility is like a third of what it used to be. It's going to become much easier to use and hold, right? Based on those metrics. So, but that's the cost of the unruggable, is that you need to deal with the volatility of the asset.